Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here again for this very interesting fourth session of Agriculture Roundtable. We started with pulses, then moved to grains, then oil seeds and vegetable oils. And today we are having one of the most debated topic because of various aspects of the sector, which is sugar and ethanol. And we have seen in past that when we talk about sugar and ethanol, there are a lot of different viewpoints from E20 mandates to food for fuel. So all complex issues related to agriculture get converged when we talk about sugar and ethanol. I would also take this opportunity to thank our sponsors and supporters. In fact, one of them happens to be the part of the panel, a very renowned face in sugar and ethanol industry, Mr. Rahil Shaikh. So I would take this opportunity to in person thank you, Rahil Bhai, for sponsoring and supporting our initiative to MEIR Commodities. We
Thank you.
also thank our other sponsors, Bajrang International Group, Bengani Group, and Praram Agri Trading, BMCC. This Agriculture Roundtable is brought to you by GGPC, that is Global Grains and Pulses Council, a council which works on global grains and pulses ecosystem. Honeybee, which is a boutique consulting company working on intersection of agriculture, food, technology, and innovation. And Know Your Commodity, which is a platform where different stakeholders of agriculture commodity from across the globe converge and discuss new things. I would take this whole thing forward with a brief presentation on supply and demand numbers, which we can eventually make part of the discussion as we move forward. So I'll just share my screen. Neeraj, let me know once my screen is visible.
Yes, visible.
Perfect. So let us start with the global outlook of sugar and ethanol with some of interesting numbers. Uh, let's understand that, globally we are seeing that sugar, when talked about, cannot be talked in isolation because it always come with ethanol. And we all know that sugarcane production happens predominantly in Brazil, India, and to a certain extent in US, European Union, Thailand, China. And also sugar is produced using sugar beet. So when we talk about roughly say 180 odd million metric tons is what is estimated for 2025 when it comes to sugar. But as I said, the ethanol is also a very integral part of sugarcane ecosystem. And we are estimating that production for 2025, global production for 2025 could be something around 123 billion liters, with United States, Brazil, European Union, China, and now even India dominating the output. Out of roughly 123 billion liters of ethanol, 60% of them come from grain, predominantly in grain, also maize, and roughly 3 to 4% also coming from rice in some of the countries, and 40% do come from sugarcane and molasses. By 2035, because of various biofuel mandates, we see that the demand for ethanol will rise to close to 150 billion liters. And this actually, take into consideration of more or less the current mandates, which has already been declared. The mandate can also be now newly declared, as we've seen that in case of India, where the 20% mandate for blending with petrol of ethanol was preponed. So those type of things can happen. We've also seen that actually, yields have not grown to the level where actually when we compare it to other commodities, specifically grains, and we have seen that in past since 1960s, right? We have only seen roughly 25 tons per hectare of increase from 45 tons per hectare to 70 tons per hectare. But we have seen a pretty decent upside in yields when it comes to sugar beet. So from 25 tons to 65 tons per hectare over the same period. So currently, sugarcane occupies roughly 26 to 27 million hectares globally, while sugar beet is cultivated in around 4 to 5 million hectares. Coming to India, let's assume that India would be growing for next 10 years at rate of 8%, and we'll be having a population of 1.5 billion. as we move towards 2035. And in that scenario, the sugarcane requirement or the sugar requirement, right, would be pretty high. And if we talk about currently what we are producing with 440 million metric tons of sugarcane, roughly 35.6 million metric tons of sugar this year. That is what our estimate is. Sugar consumption currently is 28.3 million metric ton. And if we take diversion of 5 million metric tons to ethanol, we could have surplus of exportable sugar of tuned to between 2 to 2.6 million metric ton. Simultaneously, the ethanol blending program, which is has created the need of close to 10.5 billion liters for this year to meet just 20% blending target, while the industry is asking for more and increase this mandate to as high as some cases 27% and even 30%. Now, if we go by purely that numbers of the sugar, so in 2025, 2026, we look at carry of roughly 43.1 million metric tons, production of 186 million metric tons. Global trade or imports, whatever you call it, would be something around 65 million metric tons. So that puts a supply close to 29.1 million metric tons and use of 184 million metric tons. So ending stock would be a tad higher than what it was last year. So we have seen that consistently since 2022-23, there has been increase in production. So even in some cases where one country is not able to do well because of the geographical spread of sugarcane, all the way from tropical areas to the Western Hemisphere, to the Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, and the Southern Hemisphere, we have seen that actually it is not that if one region doesn't perform well or one country doesn't perform well, the other country is able to take care of it. When India was not doing great, Brazil chipped in and their production increase of 4%. So those type of things has ensured that actually there is sufficient ample supply available when it comes to sugar. Now going to ethanol, ethanol generally carries are very limited. So we are looking at 4 billion liters of carry, and more or less actually it hovers around that. Production for 2025 and 2026 would be roughly 122.6 billion liters. Again, the trade is very limited, when it comes to ethanol. So it is 12.6 billion liters of trade which is happening. And predominantly you'll find that this trade happens more or less in industrial segment rather than for blending and fuel purpose. That puts supply to be 126 billion liters, and out of that, 122.4 billion liters would be used. Now, let's touch upon some of the raw materials. So, predominantly, you'll find that ethanol is made using sugarcane, sugar beet, and maize, or sugar plus ethanol is made using sugarcane, sugar beet, and maize. And here you see that actually, the sugarcane, there is a except 2024, 25, when there was a dip in the production, but there was because of drought in typically some parts of the world. And other than that, we have seen consistent increase in production of sugarcane. So typically, in 2025, 2026, we are looking at roughly 2 billion metric tons of sugarcane being produced. And India and Brazil happens to be the major players. So this year we are looking at 710 million metric tons coming from Brazil and 430 million metric tons coming from India. Sugar beet, you again see that there has been a consistent increase in the production. So 2025, 2026 looks at 290 million metric tons of production of sugar beet, with European Union taking the largest share of it, 120 million metric ton. Russia comes second with 60 million metric ton. Now coming to maize, while actually it is not comparable to the crop like sugarcane and sugar beet because very hardly there is a possibility of converting it to sugar. But nevertheless, maize we have seen again except 24, 25. Overall, the production has increased. This year we are looking at 1.28 billion metric tons, and US taking a lead. In fact, one of the largest delta which you see in supply and demand in maize is because of US. So they have moved from 383 million metric tons last year to 427 million metric ton this year. Brazil again also is having a good crop. So we are looking at 122 million metric tons of maize produced compared to 115 million metric ton last year. Now coming to India, let's see a little bit of sugar equivalent. So the overall carry for 2025-26 was 3.9. This was pretty low for very simple reason is that last year we struggled with our production. This year we are looking at overall production of 35.5 million metric tons of sugar equivalent and supply of 39.4 million metric tons. Sugar production of 30.5, diversion to ethanol of 5, and usage on sugar of 28.3 and export of roughly 2 million metric ton, what industry is requiring. That would put us equivalent or just a tad above to the ending stock for the previous year. Now, when we talk about the breakup in India of ethanol, so you see that in 2025-26, we would be producing roughly 10.5 billion liters of ethanol, and sugarcane contributing 4.3 billion liters and grain 6.2. We are not seeing that grain contributing more than last year in absolute numbers because the sugarcane crop is pretty decent this year. But overall, if you see that in 2022-23, we started where the sugarcane was substantially more than the grain in percentage terms in production of ethanol. But over the time, we have seen that in 2023, 24, and 24-25, there has been dip where now the grain and predominantly in that also maize has becoming a driving force. In 2025-26, we'll also see a lot of ethanol produced using FCI provided broken rice. So with that as a context, let me start the deliberation, and let me first directly go to Rahil Bhai. So Rahil Bhai, your initial view on the numbers, because you are a person of numbers, how do these numbers look to you, sir? Sir, you are on mute.
I was saying that when you started your presentation, I think you have covered almost all the topic. I think you have made all of us redundant that we can sign off more quicker than we thought. I think I completely, I mean, I'm having the paper in front of me, but as I mentioned that on India number you are on the ballpark. I think we are taking sugarcane production as 444 million tons this season. We are taking that 72.78% would be drawal towards the sugarcane side. The rest will go into again seeding and other alternative sugar producers. So basically, we'll be left over to crush about 323 million tons of sugarcane and gross recovery at around industrial recovery at around 10.95. We should see production around 35.40 on a gross sucrose level. We estimate that 4 million ton will be diverted. That's our benchmarking today. But I think sugar industry should brace for being it lower also because it looks like a corn-based ethanol program now more than a sugarcane. So I think we should start to get a shock as an observer for ourselves by discussing and talking more and more about it. Because at 10.5 billion liters, you already have the application to the oil marketing company of about 17 billion liter. So I think to allocate that with the nearest depots and everything, we think that it could be a little lower, but let's benchmark that we will be at around 4 million ton. So net sugar production at around 31.40. That's what we estimate. We estimate consumption at around 29 million ton because we are a growing economy, we are a growing country. Though today morning I was reading that Zomato and Swiggy have started a new brand called Zero Sugar Delivery also. So if you want to have any product which does not have sugar, you can use that button as an option. So I think we will be around. Consumption will not taper down. People don't give up habits of eating so quickly, and I think I come from my own experience that I consume about 20 kilos a year, and I'm doing it regularly with little bit of fitness regime. I think more than eating habit, we forget that we need to do a fitness regime as well. Eating cannot disappoint you forever. We don't have enough of our fitness regimes as well. So gym should be at 0% GST very soon rather than 18% GST there. So I think around 31.40 is what I believe will be the sugar production and 29 as a consumption. So we have a scope of 1.5 to 2 million tons as export, as you has rightly portrayed. I think the only difference of opinion on your slide and ours is we consider that the opening stock in this year will be about 4.5 million ton. 3.9 is tad lower because at 3.9 पे अगर होता है बाजार तो अभी आग लग चुकी होती because we already have consumed about 2 million tons, 2.5 million in the month of October. So I think that's the only difference. Otherwise, I think you have covered everything. On world market also, there is a 2 million ton surplus. So you have taken 186 minus 184, fair number on that account. There's one company or one research agency which is much higher at around 4.4, 4.5. But Brazil now have started to produce less sugar. They have almost crushed about 500 million tons of cane. There is about 1.5, 2 months to go, so they will do another 100. So उसमें जितना कम हो जाएगा, because earlier this year season they have crystallized about 53% of the sugar cane into sugar, which is a historically high number. ये कभी हुआ नहीं है. तो इंडिया की एब्सेंस में ब्राजील ने एक अच्छा काम कर दिया कि इतनी क्रिस्टलाइजेशन कैपेसिटी बना दी है कि मुझे लगता नहीं है कि हमको कभी भी शुगर नहीं मिलने का शौक मिलेगा, अनलेस के शुगर केन ही ना हो. तो so that's where the one of the absence of India has allowed them to crystallize. So I think about 2 million ton surplus is what we also have. So I think to sum up, this is exactly is what we are also doing.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rahil bhai, to validate that. And you rightly mentioned very important point. Like, the beauty of sugar industry is that both the production as well as farming and consumption, it is so decentralized that sugar shock to the level where actually shakkar nahi milega. Yeah, definitely you are right. Like, it can happen that 5%, 10% upside or downside. But I don't see something what is happening, for example, whether we talk about rice or whether we talk about pulses, that the volatility would be so huge, right? That one year you spend 90 rupees a kg for your dal, split dal, and next year you pay 220 rupees per kg. That type of scenario I don't think is never going to exist until and unless the governments across the world, they go on I would say the steroids to put ethanol, right, into every tank possible. And your initial views on that also, are we overdoing ethanol?
I think on sugarcane side there is scope, as I mentioned currently, because sugarcane, as you
No,
rightly
I'm talking about
mentioned,
general. I'm talking about general.
I think 20% is what we have achieved. I think on Indian side, I think we are now on the top side of it. Because we need to change our format of our car. It will take a long time to do that. So we to move to 27, 30, like the flexi fuel cars needs to be out. We haven't seen for last 5 years any flexi fuel cars being available in the market. And I think the competition is coming from the electric vehicle, which is slowly taking over. So I think at 20% currently, with the capacities which we have on Indian side, we are fairly done with it. I think in Brazil there is scope to increase more, because I believe there is about 100% of the cars now which are flexi fuel, which can take 100% ethanol, which can take 100% gasoline. So there is a scope is there. I think we are on the infrastructure side of ethanol. I think we are peaking out at if you have 10.2 billion liters of requirement and you have 17 billion liters of subscription and more project coming up. I think there needs to be more infrastructure on flexi fuel cars coming in rather than now setting up more ethanol facilities.
But right, actually, we also understand the Brazil per capita income, right? The affordability of high value cars, and also right the share of the flexi fuel car, and as well as your two wheelers to three wheelers ratio to car, and all those things also need to be factored in. We cannot just blindly I understand Brazil is having that capability. For India to develop the same capacity and capability, first of all, we have to come to that middle income group. Then actually we are gonna look into that.
I think it's all about niyat here, no? I think what we have done is we have pushed the ethanol side and forgot completely that car also needs to be modified. New car needs to be so. Currently we are selling E20. Why not E30? The new car at least can have that 10% more flexis to come in. I think the whole fundamental here is that we are doing it out of food here. That with 1.5 billion people, Brazil is an exportable of all the agricultural commodity. सो वो साइड को हम उसके साथ कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते व्हाट ब्राजील कैन डू. अगर हम 100% फ्लेक्सी फ्यूल कार्स अगर बना भी ले यहाँ पे, तो आप कितनी शुगर केन लाओगे उसको 100% फीड करने के लिए? तो पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है वो. तो आई थिंक हमको थोड़ा सा हमारा जो एथेनॉल पॉलिसी है वो सरप्लस डिपेंडेंट है. हमारी एथेनॉल पॉलिसी ब्राजील के जैसी नहीं है कि इट हैज टू बी डन एंड इट नीड्स टू बी डन. सो वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट वी आर ओनली डाइवर्टिंग आवर सरप्लस at certain point of time. If the rain gods are not happy with us, we probably will not have that surplus to blend. So I think it's more of a surplus dominated ethanol blending policy rather than a supply and demand source.
Again, Rahil bhai, last question on the same topic, because then I'll move to other on the similar areas. Then we'll talk about the export. See, when we talk about the blending program, see, one of the elephant in the room is that actually we are talking about excesses. we have seen last year that actually, that excesses can become, right, thin air. And even the government has to put restriction on diversion. Government had to put restrictions, right, on export. Now, if you are having maize and you are having sugarcane, right? One bad year, right? In case trouble both of your crops, and once you are 20%, right? You have to be 20%. Now, do we go back and then change the policy and then suddenly say that no, we are not having this year sufficient availability of ethanol, right? We cannot give that ethanol. So now, we move back and go back to E10. That's not going to happen. So in that scenario, how do you see that actually, if there is a one or two or three bad years, it will open, and I've shown that, the export of ethanol is not that common, right? The world market is not structured in a way to, do a lot of ethanol export, and because of the volatility of the product itself. In that scenario, how do you see, things panning out?
As I mentioned, we are surplus dependent ethanol policy. So I think I'm pretty sure if you don't have surpluses, I think how do we benchmark the government mood? The government mood is to have domestic supply for food first, and then any surplus which is left over for ethanol. If it's leftover, then we go in for export. So I think I benchmark the waterfall in that fashion. So if you have any time where you don't have surpluses, I think we probably we'll have to move backward. I mean, you can't be producing it yourself and importing and making ethanol blending will again make no sense at all. But I think you look at the corn area, it is increasing, no doubt about it. So if you look at ethanol policy in 2018, it was derived for sugar industry. अभी sugar industry सौतेला हो गया है इस मामले में. So we have been pushed down to from 75%, now we are at around 25-30%. So I would not say it's currently we will have that kind of that we have to move back to E10, E15 because sugar cane crop last year was a bad year. Despite that, we managed to do about 3.3 million tons of diversion and give ethanol to the government. So I think such kind of years will be very limited for us. But God forbid if it's happened, then food first and fuel later. So I mean, we will be if we have to push back at that time, we may have to. But rice is enough surplus. We have corn area increasing. So I think E20 currently लगता है कि चलता रहेगा freeze जहाज की तरह.
No, perfect, perfect. No, see, actually, sugarcane industry is not on the right side of the government currently because UP and Maharashtra election are pretty far off. I'll go to Praful Bhai. Praful Bhai, namaste, sir. Actually, sir, your initial comment on because sugar is in pink of its health. Good production this year.
Yeah, good production and maybe tough for sugar industry. We are looking around 345 sucrose availability. Though there is a united view of 4 million diversion, but the news which I am getting is like maybe there could be a soccer and diversion could be only 3. And sugar, what we will be available with us is around 31.5. As far as consumption figure is concerned, our consumption figure for the 25-26 is 39.5. And it may go up if there is a political stability in Bangladesh, and which is the border is closed nowadays. Why our figures are means in 2024-25 consumption was 28.8. I can just give my numbers.
Yeah, sure, please, sir.
Opening was 8 million ton, production 26.1, total 34.1. Our 28 point is the domestic consumption, 0.08 is our export. So that is the total, we can say supply of 29.6, and we are close with 45. So if we are closing at 45, and if next season we have sugar of 315, so that will give you around 360 availability. This is only the sugar I am telling you. So from 360, 295 is our consumption which I have taken. So if we take 290, then we will have 70 extra. If we take 295, then we have 65. The reason of taking more consumption is there are 5 states in 2026. That is Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Pondicherry, and other 2, 3 states. 7, 8 states are going for assembly elections. Secondly, there is a new recent development after the GST is from the bakery products. Any bakery, it could be biscuits, bread, and ABC, XYZ, which is the bakery related and confectionery, where the GST has reduced by the government. In this, the package size is increased, but they have not decreased the price. So what happens that if there is a 100-gram package of biscuit somebody is taking up, it will be of 110 or 120 grams. Once packet is opened, that is get consumed. So consumption from bakery side will go up. Consumption from the state will go up. So yes, this domestic consumption, if it is at 290, then it's a tough for sugar industry. That is because there is no window open for the exports. Now this number that which are zooming of ethanol 3 and 4, if that is soccer of 3, then I can say that sugar industry shares will be falling like anything because that export parity is not available. And secondly, the season when it starts from 15th of November or say 1st of November, I'm feeling in November itself, there could be a drop of domestic price by 6 to 7%. The main expenses after the cost of sugarcane is the fund, interest cost, money cost. So there are various mills of cooperative, private, or what XBC, XYZ. They are all in crunch of their finance. So they sell anything above the quota allowed by the government of India. And that supply is seasonal supply, which we can say approximately from this time November season starts. So till March end, there will be this 6 months of the sugar season and 5 months of actual season. That will be a lower recovery if a price recovery, this final product. And as far as if there is no more than 3 ethanol, or it will be 4, it will be better. If it is 5, then the bumper. So the ethanol number will decide the future of sugar industry and the rates. As far as domestic rates are concerned, I don't look 1 year any uptrend as such, except this 5 million ton of diversion if possible from the government. And yes, either if there is no parity, because surplus in the world is range from 2.5 to 4.5. Again, there also a twist. If it is 4.5, then you forget 25, 26 for sugar industry. If it is 2.5, there could be some chance of exports. So yes, we are onto the signal of the ethanol and the surplus in the world. These two will decide the future of sugar industry. But I don't see any good future for 25, 26 in India.
Sir, one question, sir. Actually, I was talking to a few because the diversion part and the export part, there is no science except talking to the government, right? Rest of the numbers estimation is based on various different scientific methods.
Yeah.
But at least for how much the diversion, because government controls with the iron fist, right? How much you divert, and you have to look at that. Same is with the export. Sir, I was getting a feeler that actually, government is comfortable, frankly, to go up to 5 million metric tons. So I'm a little bit surprised, with Rahil bhai and you both taking number to be 4 million. Are you seeing something which I'm not able to see, sir?
Yeah, there is something related to, we can say, maybe of Maharashtra politics.
Okay.
Maybe something which I don't want my peers to come up. Maybe something only that rice which I have more with my godowns, which I want to get it liquidated. And yes, after sugar, first of all, sugar was the first kid. It get bigger, then उनको मार दिया. फिर अभी कौन वाला है, वो अभी क्रॉप ज्यादा है, वो थोड़ा आगे ऊपर आ जाएगा, उसको भी झापड़ मार देने का. तो this is like in India. See, the Deepak bhai, frankly, the thing is, my industry has invested a lot for ethanol, and the feedback which the government of India has given, if the new way in Indian economy, if somebody has helped to save the rupee INR and to compete with the balanced trade and everything. And if you kill that industry and didn't allow even to recover their investments done for the infrastructures and everything, then in this country, sometimes we are very happy, sometimes we are not happy.
So I point taken. In fact, like in my discussion with Sood sir, we'll talk about that policy part on the rice, right? Which even day before yesterday, I've put in a very strong comments on around that, because I'm not seeing that to be something which is logical. At the same time, actually, like it is not something which I should be paying as a taxpayer, right? Like from my money, we are getting people like taken for a ride. Rahil bhai, you can add. You have raised your hand.
No.
Nothing to.
Sorry, it was
Okay.
technological error.
No, not a problem, sir. So technological error पे ही देश चल रहा है अभी. Kapil bhai, over to you, sir. Your initial comment, like sugar cane and the sugar and ethanol numbers, your views on that. And I know you are having a divergent view, and most welcome to share that divergent view, right? के मक्के से भी अच्छा शुगर केन, सॉरी, आपका इथेनॉल बन रहा है, right? अब चावल गवर्नमेंट has already put the rice also on the one of the option. Your initial views, sir, and comments.
Well, I mean, crop numbers more or less, I'm aligned with the industry view. Gross sucrose numbers are going to be around 345 to 350. Uh, Diversion is going to be around 41, between 40, 41. Looking at it, of course, first round, there are many, the cycle one which has happened, there's enough and more rumors going around. But, I think we should see an allocation later this evening, and whatever numbers we have crunched, we should see a number of 3.5 or 35 from which 35 lakh tons, which ONC will be taking. Another 300,000 tons is already committed to private OMC. So we are already at 3.8 in a way. We have another, 2 billion liters of tender, or 200 crore liters of tender, which is supposed to come in the next 3-4 months. So by the time the crush is going to continue, and I'm sure people who got left out with juice will look at diverting more ethanol via B heavy molasses. So we have the window is still available where the diversion will reach around 40, 41 or 4.1 million tons. About the consumption, we saw 28 million tons of sugar technically getting dispatched from the sugar mills. It's like PRAFUL bhai said, a biscuit packet is opened is considered as consumed. Sugar dispatched from the mill is considered as consumed. So we around 28 million tons sugar will get dispatched by 30th September. It's a sharp decline from last year, where the numbers were around 29.4, thanks to the tighter border controls which we saw. And looking at pure domestic dynamics, we expecting a growth of around 1%, a generic growth, and there will be some push which will come via the GST uh, reduction which has happened essentially on the products which are sugar rich, and we should give another 200 to 300k push to the consumption, taking consumption to around 28.5 to 28.6 million tons. These are the basic numbers. After putting all these numbers together, we can see a surplus of around 1.5 million tons, considering government looking at current scenario and looking at the way the rainfall has been, the water levels have been in reservoir, we have fairly very decent chances of again a decent plantation of sugarcane, especially when we have seen that other in other crops the returns are not that good. So people who had diverted to crops, especially like maize, banana, potato, in various states, will come back to sugarcane, and we should see a bigger sugar cane area in the country for 26-27 crop. So looking at all these aspects, I do believe that a 5 million opening stock will be more or less a comfortable number. So we will have between 1.5 to 2 million tons, depending on how the production actually ends up, of surplus, which can be exported. Now, the question is, how will this export happen? That is one tricky part, and I really don't have an answer. But
No,
what I know,
Kapil, we will talk about export.
yeah, sure,
Your view or your views on ethanol part of it, right? You know that
sure.
we have started seeing, and you also being one of the companies which are involved in producing ethanol. Uh, this whole new discussion about taking the limit forward. I understand the industry is having overcapacity and they want some mechanism to
Yeah,
use that capacity, which is make them, I would say that healthy, right? Otherwise, surplus capacity capex is already there. But at the same time, the feedstock challenges, even if the capacities are there and for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, if we are able to tweak and get even beyond the current levels, do you think that actually industry also have to look inside that are they creating really too much of capacities on winds and fancies where actually we might not be able to absorb because we are talking about electrical vehicles, we are talking about ethanol only being used in only, right? For majority of commercial transportation, people move for use diesel. So there is already limitation, even if you take for example, we go to the level of say 30% tomorrow. What you are looking at is another 3 billion liters only to add it. In fact, your capacity is already above and beyond that. Even if I go to 30%, right, currently
that's
from
6
20 to
billion
30%
liters. That will be 6 billion liters actually, or 600
additional.
crores
So
additional demand. Yeah,
additional, yeah. So now if we even add that, from tomorrow, still we would be having that, just reaching the current capacities, right? And then from where you will get the feedstock, right? You don't have sufficient maize, you don't have, and rice also. If they start giving everything to ethanol, it will get exhausted in 2 years. After 2 years, then you'll have to look at for
absolutely.
imports. So what
I
I'm
know
saying
where
that
you're
the
getting to, Deepak.
yeah. So your views.
Rice is a
I'm just
very
framing it.
temporary. Yeah, rice is a very temporary phenomenon. Rice is just a way of evacuating the surplus rice which is lying with the FCI godowns, and this is the easiest way. They have tried to tender it via OMSS. There's no export parity at those levels, and there's no domestic market also for this kind of volume. you know to consume 5 million tons in one go, which is going to happen today after allocation, is there's no other industry which can take it. So for an immediate resolution of the high stocks, this was important, I believe. So the way the stock levels are, I think it might continue for one more year, because that will be required. Another 5 million ton will be required to bring it to an optimum level where FCI rise levels come. Especially, there's enough. We reading your messages about the wheat planting and how the wheat stock is going to be. So that's our debate, which is now start. And depending, you saw there was a decent procurement of wheat which happened during the last season, Rabi season, and now that whole debate will start again. And so, assuming that the wheat numbers go back to the normal procurement levels, they have to reduce the rice stocks down. So, I mean, I don't see any other. You see, we have debated this, so that rice export prices are coming down. It has come down substantially. So, what is a way out to take out? Otherwise, what happens? We have seen the scenario 10 years back, 15 years back, when the rice used to get rotten in the FCI warehouse, and used to get sold in 1 rupee or 2 rupees per kg. I will still believe that if there is a consumption point which helps you otherwise in reducing the stocks, which will reduce your carry cost and also help you reduce your imports in one way or another, is still a solution to do it. Of course, there is a way where you can get into WFPs, you can get into, other kind of other ways of export, but still there also you will have to subsidize it in one way or another to do that export. Now coming to the consumption part of ethanol, I think we are reading a little too much when we see 1800 crores of offer coming in. If you analyze the offers company by company, if you compare it, I mean, pick any random 20 companies who have offered. Everyone has, because the way the allocation is structured, you have to offer maximum quantity to get at least some kind of allocation. Everyone has offered their CTO capacity. CTO is their consent to operate, which is the basic document which is required to quote. And your total quotes are always benchmarked against the CTO. Now, everyone has offered basis their CTO capacity multiplied by 365 days. We know in this country, no distillery works for 365 days, especially the sugar mill. Yeah, so the quotes are those numbers which have been offered are on papers. Of course, neither we have the feedstock to, if tomorrow the OMC says that we will buy entire 1800 crores, I'm 100% sure hardly 70% of that ethanol can come in because we don't have feedstock. So it is more of more in a way to get maximum allocation in round one, because that's where 80% of buying happens, and then balance subsequently whoever is gets left out gets placed in the rest of the year. Now, how do we increase the consumption? Ethanol, I think, more than flexi fuel cars, what is more required is a flexi fuel two-wheeler, because in India, India moves on two-wheelers. So our introduction of two-wheeled flexi fuel bike or a scooter will give our consumption bigger push. And second, prior to that, the most important thing is a differential pricing. You have to have, if you're going for E100, there has to have a mechanism where a differential pricing is introduced, which has to start with the basic fact that today E100 is at 18% GST. A normal ethanol, what we are selling today for blending, is at 5% GST. The GST numbers has to bring down, which automatically will bring some impact on the prices. Second, of course, looking at the calorific value and the efficiency loss, a differential pricing has to introduce. It is a very common phenomena, which, if you talk to any Brazilian, they will believe that they will tell you that when you go for getting your tank full at any gas station, uh, uh, if you are getting it ethanol filled at 3,000 rupees and petrol filled at 4,000 rupees, people will prefer getting it filled at 3,000 rupees because your cash outflow in a single go is less. So it's a psychological phenomena of, again, a middle class person who is the biggest consumer today in the country. So you have to, align the policies in a way where automatically, naturally, and that's how the consumption increase. Then, of course, we have a lot of downstream options which will come in. Today, the technologically, it's pretty costly. We are looking at isobutanol, we are looking at SAF, we are looking at uh, more downstream products which which can come via ethanol as a base product. And then, of course, the alternate uses of sugar, which is like PLA, we are looking at the first plant will come in. So these are then the second part which comes in. Then, and because, right now, a very generic way of just keep on increasing the blending is actually not the solution. The solution is how you increase the base where the consumption of ethanol can go in. And that's how you bring a more systematic consumption. And then comes to your question, which you always ask, that what happens when the weather fails. In that scenario, of course, the first priority is food. You have to feed the people of the country. It might be, you might take a setback for 1 year or 2 years where you are doing less blending, but which is okay. Because you can't keep people starving and then keep on blending your fuel.
Kapil, just small point here. See, as you rightly mentioned, when there is no price differential, now what is going to happen is that the day you don't have ethanol, you increase the petrol, the OMC will go to government and say that, hey, you have to increase the price because we are losing money. So suddenly, like, if I have to go back from 20 to 10 or 30 to 20 or 10, suddenly, like, my petrol prices spike up to 10, 15, 20%. And we have seen that this government, at least, they are not in a big mood of, like, taking the hit, right? Except for just before election, 2, 3 months, they do it. But as soon as the elections are over, they have not even changed the excise duties because, again, it is state plus central government subject. So everybody wants to make revenue out of petrol. And even after blending, the government has not changed the price at all. While, like, the crude prices has been one of the lowest we have seen. So if I go with, again, what I'm saying, that historical data tells me how the government is going to be reacting. I'm not mind reading them. But at the same time, we have to see to it that if I, as a consumer, right, suddenly see a spike of 10%, 15% in my fuel bill, right, and then I'm told that this is a better, now then that story will change. This is a better fuel.
Can I tell you
Right?
something, Deepakji?
Yeah, please.
It's a myth
Please.
that because of blending, the fuel prices are coming down. Today, if you do back of the envelope calculations, 24-25, the average procurement price of an OMC was 65.5 rupees, blend of all, ex distillery. Average freight they paid was around 3.5. That makes it 70. Plus GST, plus depot to the gasoline station price, plus 23 rupees excise. They are actually, by buying ethanol, they are actually at negative 7 to 8 rupees a liter. It's pure match. Anyone can do that match. You can figure, you
No,
can X.
in fact, I'm totally agreeing with you. That's what I'm saying.
So that's
Consumer
why I'm
is
saying
not happy.
if actually
Right?
the
Who is
blending
happy?
reduces, they will be more than happy. They will be making more money actually.
Exactly. Like
So they will,
OMC,
the petrol price won't change because of that.
exactly. See, OMC is saying we are suffering, we are bleeding, right? Uh, Except what I'm saying, again, coming back is consumer is saying that I am bleeding. They are not very happy, right? Government is not changing, and while they claim for whatever reason, they are also not happy, if you ask me, because they are having the problem of rice, maize, and all that thing. And in fact, you can recall the government has asked that actually those who are making ethanol from maize, they'll have to buy maize at MSP, right? Otherwise, we can take action against you and we'll stop, like, procuring from you. It has
Yeah.
not happened. But if that would have happened, even, like, the ethanol producer would have been not happy. So who is happy in this ecosystem, right?
Thankfully, maize and distilleries are not part of essential commodities, and it's not compulsory to run distillery, because if they bring up with these kind of rules, you can't run a distillery. It's very simple.
Also not to forget the calorific value which comes down. So at the cost to the consumer as well, which is technically 7 to 8 rupees liter loss to the OMC, and
Yeah.
add about 7 to 8 liter rupees cost to the consumer as well. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I mean, mileages have come down. I mean, personally, I'm absorbing it. I am observing it in my own vehicles as well. So,
No, I'm observing, frankly,
recently
I'm seeing it,
Farhan
Rahil
Khan
bhai. I'm
got
seeing it. I'm
recently
seeing it,
for
and in fact, I've tried 4 different vehicles because I go to like in rural area quite a lot. So I thought maybe this vehicle is not working. So 2023 के पहले वाली ली, बाद वाली ली, एकदम latest ली, right? Audi भी चलाई और Hector भी चलाई, and then your Hyundai भी चलाई because they claim that they are. लेकिन I see, like, there is decrease in mileage for everything, and it's decrease is
More,
not 4-5%, sir. It is substantial decrease.
this is more of the reason, I don't want to get into debate how much is the,
correct.
a drop in the efficiency. Depends on vehicle to vehicle. There is a drop. Let's agree to it. Let's buy that. There is a drop. But the point is, because of all this, and negative publicity or media, outcry which has happened against E20, it looks a bit tough that, all of a sudden you will see increase in blending. So it makes more sense now to increase the base where, the consumption can happen.
Infrastructure
Perfect.
is needed on cars and two-wheelers and differential pricing. I mean, आप बिंदास करिए ना, एक E20 E5 का स्टेशन बना के उसको 5 रुपए सस्ता रखिए, उबर ओला वाला भराएगा. इट मेक सेंस फॉर देम. आई मीन, उसकी कैश फ्लो की बात है. कंज्यूमर को
Agree.
चॉइस
So
मिल
now,
जाएगा तो कंप्लेन्स बंद हो जाएगी. आज कंप्लेन
I'm
चॉइस की कंप्लेन है. ब्लेंडिंग की परसेंट गवर्नमेंट की नियत और ब्लेंडिंग पे किसी को वो नहीं है, डाउट नहीं है. बस एक चॉइस चाहिए कि भाई मुझे अगर 100% पेट्रोल भराना है तो उसका कॉस्ट क्या है, मुझे 20% बढ़ाना है तो उसका cost.
And Indians, they only look for choice. See, there are two states in which any type of ethanol is not allowed, right? सबसे ज़्यादा consume वही होती है. So we understand, like, that when we are pushed, we Indians, we don't like it. Praful bhai, coming to you, sir, your views before you leave, because I know you are having some guests waiting for you. Sir, your initial views or final views before you leave. On sir, export, like, what is your demand or what is your view on, like, that about export of sugar, sir?
The export, there should be allowed as soon as possible. Uh, the numbers which are coming from everywhere, and we will be strongly asking after once the number is available of the diversion, and the way Rahil bhai, me, and we Aistha from association and other associations, we had marketing was done by going each and every countries of consumer nearby, and the quality of sugar, we can say sucrose level is so high in Indian sugar. We should be in the market. So irrespective of anything, first of all, 1 million ton should be allowed, whether it get export or not get export. Immediately once this is over, because the government numbers of sucrose, the last meeting was 34. But the way other peoples are giving the feedback to the government of India, so they have again called a meeting on 15th of November. And they have asked all the commissioner of sugar to review perfectly and come back. So there are much chances that government will get a figure of 35. And I think even 34 also or 35 number is different thing. The India should be there in the international market, irrespective of, no doubt we say that suppose if there is a problem in the domestic consumption, sugarcane is not there for the domestic consumption. In that case, you don't allow blending or you don't allow export. But next season, there are no different views. There are no sudden views. So why even some rumors are coming of 3 million ton? Why the things are, something is not unforeseen with you also, me also. But once the allocation is over in ethanol, then we'll able to make a strong demand. We have already, I think, 1 million ton even today also should be allowed.
I totally agree with you, Praful bhai. We are having too much of surplus, and it is time actually, like, it is open so that you get time. Those who are producers, they get time to find a market and structure it.
And where you will get the market? Suppose it's a Brazil's neighbors will take from Brazil only. Our neighbors, Asian countries, Gulf countries will buy from us only. And
Right.
if you delay and then you can't make the raw sugar, which is the main marketable in the world market. And if you have only white sugar, then again white, and that is also inferior, not the refined one. Then there will be a less problem. So I
No,
think,
no,
yes, we should be allowed to export.
no, sir. Totally agree with you. Like, we'll also do from our side whatever is required, right,
Please.
to put the right views in ears of the government, that this is most important.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot, Praful bhai, for
Thank
joining.
you.
It is always
Thank
pleasure
you.
to talk
Thank
to
you,
you.
everyone. Yes.
Appreciate.
Thank you.
Sood sab, coming to you, sir. Sorry, coming to you last. I always come to you last because actually then you can, like, analyze what everybody else has said, right, and then give us the guidance and mentorship. Sir, where do you see, first of all, on the ethanol part of it? And the numbers also. Sir, you're on mute. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. I'm feeling very special coming in last of all. So I have the
No, sir,
benefit
you're
of
always
all the
special
views.
to us, sir. Like, it is given, like, the learning, teaching. And sir, I have no, like, I say that with all due
I have all
respect,
the
right? Sir, actually, like, this supply and demand numbers, right, and in sugar, sir, I would say my 90% of knowledge and understanding of sugar industry is just because of you. Previously, I was like not even a sugar person. I had no clue. I used to understand only, sir, pulses and grains, right? You're learning, you're teaching. You would not even recall the discussions we had so many times. on a glass of water plus ethanol, right? And that learning is helping me a lot, sir. Actually, it's always a pleasure to have share the screen with you, sir. Please, sir, go ahead.
So, as I said, I have the benefit of all the views ahead of me. Firstly, in this particular tender for ethanol, the government has made it almost very clear. It's very easy to break up how much of each will be there, because the cornerstone of this one is the ethanol from FCI rice. They have said 243 crore liters from that, supply till July. And you can combine it with 1.5 times of other grains ethanol, which give the maximum profit anyway, because when the price of 71 few paisa was decided for corn, the corn prices had gone up to 29,000. Now they are much lower. So, and next year's outlook we have discussed already two days ago. So nobody will miss that. So therefore, rice plus corn and so-called damaged food grains calculates at 585 crore liters up to July, and demand up to July is 830 crore liters, because the total is 10.5 and minus 2.2 for the last quarter. So that leaves up to July supply by sugar cane from sugar sources 245. And for the last quarter, the quotation from sugar sources is 23 crore liters. The last quarter also will be supplied. And so if 20 out of that is allotted, you have about 265. So that is my maximum number from sugar, which is substantially lower than industry's expectations and ability. And second tender, I was doing some numbers from PPAC, etc., other sources. Next year's petroleum consumption is about the ethanol consumption at 20% works out to about 1280, 1300. And 10% supplies of gasoline is from public-private sector. Because all the discourse that we have had in this as well as in other forums ignore the private sector totally. So take out 130. So I don't see a very huge scope for a second tender. It may be 100 crores, 150 crores. And so that is what the scenario for the next year looks like. In fact, my understanding may be wrong. We have the benefit of Kapil being here. Sugar industry, we all thought, will be capable of supplying, when it stabilizes, to about 6 million tons of sugar diversion towards ethanol. But then geographically, most of the industry is in 3 states. The oil companies are using a linear program-based optimization model to minimize the freight. How do you see a mill in Meerut supplying ethanol to Srinagar, when in Jammu there is a grain-based ethanol plant, or to Kerala, or to Andaman Nicobar, or to a state like Tamil Nadu, which doesn't produce much ethanol? So basically, sugar production being concentrated in 3 states has a limitation of logistics, because oil companies will, as Kapil has brought out already, that oil companies are losing. They will love not having ethanol. So they will have to optimize their freight. Nobody can tell them do not optimize the freight. And so therefore, the potential supply may never be 6 million till our consumption base itself goes up very much. It may remain somewhere at 4.5. But then the burden of FCI surplus rice, again, I want to be a little more aggressive than Kapil. will last a few years longer than, even if there were 2 years of drought, than 1 year, because you have 150 plus crop coming next year. The biggest driver of the crop is not only the MSP, which is about 70-80% higher than cost of production, but another 800 rupees paid over the MSP, which is about 30% more than the MSP itself. Imagine the substantial incentive which Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh rice farmers have. And the reports locally indicate they have given up other crops and gone to rice. So how do I see rice not being surplus? Even in drought year, when the Rabi suffered, we harvested about 135. This is in excess of demand. That is the year in which this exports were banned. And that is when the demand is about 110. And demand for rice doesn't grow as much as for wheat, because the moment incomes increase, people move towards pizza and burger and bakery and whatever. And if the husband and wife work, they can't carry lunch of rice with them. They'll carry a piece of bread or bun or roti or whatever to work. So, rice will be for a few more years till we work off the stocks. I don't see are being able to work off the stock unless they accept your suggestion, Deepak, of giving it to World Food Program. And then that is the
Sir, we'll
only
have
way.
to find that. Sir, we'll have to find that as a mechanism, because every year we'll be having surplus of 40 to 45 million metric ton. Right? You rightly said, sir, this year, somebody, I was talking very closely, the internal number being given to government is 156 million metric tons, sir, of rice equivalent. Right? With 110, 112 being your consumption, sir, you'll have again, right, Kapil Bhai would liquidate 5 million, 6 million, 7 million. You will be having additional 45 million coming in, right?
Correct.
Then ethanol is also not going to take care of it. So best way is that actually, like, right, make it, as we say, that Vishwa Guru to hai apan, sir, right? And our Prime Minister also wanted we'll feed the world, we'll become the food basket. So we become the food provider to Africa, sir. Like, let's send 30 million metric ton of rice every year to Africa, right? And only charge them, जिससे आपने देखा होगा, like, initial offers होते हैं, only pay for the, like, the shipment, don't pay for the product. We should have that scheme coming, right? All the African nation, please register with us, right? And we give you free food. Sir, at least we'll get some vote in United Nations. So I think geopolitically we'll have some goodwill there, and maybe work with them and look at, like, rare earth materials. Sir, now rare earth from Africa is very important. I think use it as a diplomatic tool.
Yeah,
वो भी वापस आ जाएगा दीपक,
like
वो भी घूम
adopting
के वापस
81,
आ जाएगा.
like adopting 81 crore Indians with free food, adopt another 100 crores from somewhere else. So that
मुझे
is
याद है
the other one.
मुझे याद
Secondly,
है एक जमाने में
often we draw
Yeah,
parallels
right.
with the sea.
So, sir, just Rahil Bhai was saying something. Yeah,
सर,
Rahil
वो
Bhai, please.
राइस की जो एक्सपोर्ट पे एक मजे की बात याद आई, कि पहले यूरोप सीएक्सएल कोटे पे सीएक्सएल कोटे पे सब्सिडी देता था, तो इंडिया से शुगर यूरोप जाती थी और फिर वो सब्सिडी दे करके वापस ले आते थे. तो अगर फ्री में दोगे तो यहाँ से जाएगा ही नहीं, वो खाली कंटेनर.
नहीं, वो गवर्नमेंट
कुछ भी चार्ज करो, नहीं तो वापस हमको ही झेलना पड़ेगा, 45 देश में ही रहेगा.
वो जाएगा एनसीएल के थ्रू, मोदी जी का स्टैम्प लगकर ऊपर, हर एक बैग
Right.
पे फोटो होगा.
No, we have tried this thing with, like, private players were involved to even give free rice to Africa. That has happened. Rahil Bhai, because I know you have to leave in next 5 minutes, sir, your just short brief comment on exports, right?
सर, एक्सपोर्ट्स तो जरूरी है, मतलब आई मीन उसके बारे में ज्यादा हमको सोचना नहीं है, अनलेस देखो हमारे एक सबसे बड़ी मुसीबत जो है हमारे पास रही है वो हमारी एस्टिमेशन की रही है. तो हमारी लास्ट ईयर की एस्टिमेट का आप रेंज देखेंगे तो 33 से हम 35-36 के रेंज में थे, और हमने टेक्निकली बनाया 29.5 मिलियन. तो 4 मिलियन का हम फेल हुए थे ऑन आवर एस्टिमेशन. एस्टिमेशन एक डिफिकल्ट चीज है, बिकॉज एग्रीकल्चरल यील्ड क्या आती है, इंडस्ट्रियल यील्ड क्या आती है, डाइवर्जन कितना होगा, गुड़ में कितना होगा, खान तो हम वहां पे टेक्निकली पिछले साल थोड़े से गलत गए हैं, बट हर साल ऐसा होता नहीं है। तो ये साल मुझे लगता है जो हिसाब से बारिश हुई है, वी हैव इनफ क्रॉप अवेलेबल। 1.5 से 2 मिलियन टन का हमारे पास सरप्लस है। हमने मौका गवा दिया। वर्ल्ड मार्केट जो भी 500 550 का था, अगर पॉलिसी डिसाइड हो जाती थी कि हम जनवरी से देंगे, हो सकता था हम कुछ प्राइसिंग कर पाते थे, बट वो नाउ इट्स ओवर। आज का बाजार जो मैं देख रहा हूँ, तो डोमेस्टिक मार्केट 38 रुपए के करीब में है, और अगर आज हमको शक्कर को एक्सपोर्ट करना है तो 35 रुपए में करना पड़ेगा। तो आई थिंक डोमेस्टिक मार्केट हैज टू कन्वर्ज विद द एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट फॉर 1.5 मिलियन टन। बट 1 मिलियन तो सरकार आज दे सकती है, और 1 मिलियन जब क्रॉप आ जाए एस्टिमेट, उसके बाद दे सकती है। तो आई थिंक वी हैव टू स्टार्ट ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट जितना जल्दी हो। पहली जनवरी से शुरुआत हो जानी चाहिए एक्सपोर्ट की।
Perfect. Kapil bhai, your views on export, then I'll go to Sood sahab on export, which will be his last comment.
See, my view is, as soon as, the ethanol diversion numbers are clear, and the next step from government will, of course, be to formalize the export policy. But I have my doubts, like, Rahil bhai was telling numbers. आप आज एक्सपोर्ट करते हो तो आपका रियलाइजेशन 35 रुपीज एक्समिल का आता है, महाराष्ट्र और कर्नाटक इक्विवेलेंट. नाउ the bigger learning which I've seen over the years, whenever India had surplus or the world market had surplus, is that whoever has the least cost of carry will carry the sugar. Now, who are the three countries who have surplus? Brazil, Thailand, and India. Brazil, carry cost is around 15%. Thailand carry cost is around 12%. Indian carry cost is around 12%. Now, technically, Brazil is not going to carry, and it is going to reflect in the prices. Today, ethanol parity is somewhere close to 16 cents. We are already seeing market much below that, and still there is no positive side coming in, or that ethanol was always supposed to be the base for the prices. It's not happening. It's not giving any base to the sugar prices, which clearly says that there are no mood to carry sugar. Whatever leftover pricing is supposed to happen is happening. Whatever fluctuations are happening. Last quarters we had decent the crush numbers which came out of Brazil. The decent dryness which is going on, so crush pace looks like will continue well. We'll have the Brazil Sugar Week this week, so we'll have more numbers which will come out of Brazil. So we'll see how where do we actually end. 610 crush or 630 crush, that's still a open debate. So even though the policy will come and get formalized, I don't know how the sugar will move. That is my one big question which is there in my mind. Of course, there will be some default buyers, which will be the coastal refineries, who have a direct benefit of freight vis-a-vis buying it or importing it from Brazil. So that's some sugar which can move in there. Important thing is, I know if you notice, we opened up exports irrespective of policy for Bhutan. We need to have similar policies round the year, continuous stable policy for all our neighbors which are on the east side. Okay, so which is more important, where we have sugar, rice, wheat, or any surplus, because they are dependent on this country, and we continue seeing surplus which is getting carried. So this flow they keep a check in place of the illegal movements which are happening. Make it legal, make it count. Give more opportunities for East and Northeast to participate in the flow in a more formal way. So it gives you a very structured way of improving the whole market structure and evacuating if there's any surplus via that route. I don't know logistically if China is possible. Why not China as well? You have a huge border which you have with China, and China is a natural importer of a lot of these products.
Totally agree. And sir, West में भी अफगान जलेबी गाना बना दिया तो जलेबी खिलाई सकते हैं उनको. We can do that. Sood sir, over to you, sir, for your last comment on export as well as the way forward for the market, because it seems like market is giving a lot of confusing signals, right? While we know one thing, that production is gonna be pretty decent, but export, ethanol, and all those things, I think is complicating the things. Otherwise, I was thinking that in this session, everybody will be very happy. We'll be having huge production. We'll divert a lot to ethanol. We'll export a lot. But everybody seems to be like, not that optimistic. Your final comment and views, sir.
First of all, my comment on huge production. It is not a huge or bumper production. It is bumper with reference to an abnormally low year of last year. The same as a year before or a
Yes.
year prior to that. 36, 34, 29, 34 or 35. So
So
therefore,
22,
I
23,
want
our numbers were more than 20, 25, 26.
yeah.
So it is just 2 bad years. It is not huge,
Correct.
but it is better than last 2 years.
No, even 2 years ago was 334.2, and
Ji.
the sucrose consumption production. So so therefore we are not having anything bumper. We are just restored, thankfully, and that will be for another day. How the production is moving forward, and now on sugar exports. Uh, well, we are talking at a time when the parities are not there. It is, you can debate whether it's 3,500 or 3,600. Backs off to the, because Indian sugar throughout last year enjoyed a premium over the London prices. So there is a function of how much export quota is given. If it is too much of a quota, then the premium won't be there, discount can be there. But I expect small quota. So you have other one is the volatile nature of this commodity. This commodity, you will see the production is volatile. If India can go wrong by 10%, so can the other countries. So therefore, every analyst you talk to is carrying another balance sheet. Other one is that it has no relationship with any of the known parameters. Corn has eaten 30% into ethanol in Brazil as well. So the corn parity, the ethanol parity is very weak now. It's not as straightforward as it used to be. As therefore, comparison with the crude is not so straightforward. And the this is a this depends on multi variables, more variables than you would see in oils or grains. The prices, if you were to construct a model, and some people excel in that, which is the hedge funds. They have the tools, they have the knowledge, and they have driven the market down. Where I'm coming from is that even this year, what has happened? Why should the market see a range of $130 per ton from the high to the today's low? Nothing so drastic has happened in the market. It's basically how we see those variables affecting the prices, how we have assessed them. And so, I mean, why can't there be another swing? Who can rule out that the swing can be upward? If you look at several factors, maybe there would be. And how did the last push down come? Last push down came because initially, you see, we had lost 2 million tons of sugar in Brazil compared to a year ago, till the month of June. Then started recovering. Now it has recovered more than that. So the market is coming from that deficit to a surplus. And again, yeah, last year at this time or little earlier than this time, people are worried about fires in Brazil, and they are written off current year's crop. Look what has happened. The prices we are enjoying are lower than last year, but the analysts have written off most of the crop. They said so much of crop is burnt. Some sane people here and there came and said it's a limited area of 50,000 hectares or so. So I think I'm not too sure whether the present prices will stay. There is, I will like to believe that they will go up, and we should have a decent export quota. If we can afford 2 million tons, why not? The government should give the quota and leave it to trade to find ways to export. And possibly we'll find a way.
Perfect, sir. That very sane advice. So, advice to the government is that open quota as soon as possible. And Sood Sahab is optimistic. So am I. Right, that actually market might move in right direction so that we can make everybody's Diwali sweet. Sood Sahab, Kapil ji, Rahil bhai, and uh, PRAFUL bhai, thanks a lot for joining this session. It was really an interesting session. I thought like it will be more fiery. But at least I think, like, we have ensured, like, that we had a very interesting and insightful debate for those who will be listening to it. Thank you. Looking forward to see you again in next Agriculture Roundtable when we come towards the harvest at Rabi. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye for hosting.
Thank you.